Ryan and I just played Faust versus Mephisto. This is a trick-taking game for 2 players in that same line of trick-taking games for Mandoo, like Jekyll versus Hyde.
Dracula versus Van Helsing.
And Jekyll and Hyde, which is the cooperative
versus Scotland Yard, yeah.
This one is set and themed around Faust and Mephisto. Ryan knows a lot more about this.
I guess I've read the play. It was an opera. Faust sells his soul to the devil. Mephisto is trying to, anytime you sign a deal with the devil, it's probably not going to be in your benefit. So
that's true.
He grants Faust these things and then kind of like corrupts them. And that's actually like the whole theme of the game. Like one player plays as Faust, just trying to get the things that were promised to them. It's like it's youth, power, knowledge, and love.
Yes.
Represented by these 4 tokens.
Those are the 4 suits in the game.
Also the 4 suits in the game.
And there's some interesting hooks in this game. Let's start with those suits. There are 4 suits, each suit, and this is kind of like some of the other ones, because the other games, Jekyll versus Hyde, some of the suit colors had special power tokens that were associated with them. This one doesn't have any powers that get played or anything like this, but the suits have different numbers of cards. Youth has 1 through 7, power has 1 through 6, knowledge 1 through 5, love only has 4. And there are some special rules with each of those suits. One of the easiest ones that you might be familiar with some other trick-taking games is love. Love can't be led to play a trick unless it's already been played in the round. The other interesting thing about this game is it's 2 rounds. This is a super fast trick-taking game. You're going to play 1 round, and each player is going to have 10 cards. And then you might just play 1 round. Because
possible.
Mephisto could win in round 1. Because there's 2 objects in the game. If you're Mephisto, you want to either take tricks, all the tricks of 1 suit, or stick the other player, Faust, with all the tricks of 1 suit. If you do that in a round, you're going to flip those tokens for good for the game. If at the end of a round, 2 of the 4 tokens or more have been flipped, Mephisto wins.
Flipping more is hard.
The flipping more would be hard.
Yeah,
I've seen 2 flipped in the same round, but mostly Mephisto flips 1 and then flips the other, or flips 1 and then doesn't get 1 flipped, and thereby letting Faust win. Because Faust basically wants to disrupt that. So Faust wants to win a little of everything and allow Mephisto to win.
Yeah, finding that balance, and we've seen that kind of balance, in other games like Jekyll versus Hyde, like trying to maintain that balance. And there's a few ways that each player is going to achieve their goal, and it's kind of an interesting thing to start off with. The idea of like, okay, I'm playing Mephisto this game. I don't even care if I win all the tricks, but I might want to throw off and force you to win those tricks. But what they've done is they've brought back that kind of suit stacking Trump method, or whatever you want to call it, from Jekyll, where as you play cards, you're actually determining which cards are the most powerful. Every round, the first card you play, if David leads with a green card, green becomes the lowest, least powerful suit. Now, if I have a green card in my hand, I do have to follow it. And then I have to decide if I'm Mephisto. This is the moment where I say, I think I can beat that. But then I'm saying I'm going to take every green, or I'm going to throw off and let you have it. And then I'm saying, you're going to take every green. I've made green the lowest, so I know if my hand is full of other suits, eventually I might play a blue, I might play a red, I might play a yellow, and that could be the setup. But as soon as you've played all 4, they wipe. And that alone is interesting because now you're resetting. Although they don't all wipe, there is some more powers with these tokens that we haven't talked about yet.
Let's finish off talking about those powers. We only talked about green. Green doesn't really have any special powers, or we talked about red, but green doesn't have any special powers. When you play, it's going to go in the lowest spot, and there's 7 cards in green. Blue is interesting. When you play blue, it's going to go still in the lowest available slot, so in this case, it would go here. But the trick about blue is when you reset, like Ryan said, when you wipe all of those off during a given round, everything wipes except knowledge. Knowledge is always going to stay put for that round. So if you happen to play blue last and it's at the top, for the rest of that round, blue will effectively be like the trump suit, if you will.
For the rest
so
of
it's
the
going to be the highest value suit. So that's blue. Red doesn't really have any other rules other than the fact it has 4 cards and it can't be led until it's broken. So someone throws red because they can't follow suit, then people are free to play red. Knowledge is kind of the weirdest one as it relates to this board. Because say if knowledge was the next one played, knowledge is always going to go not on the lowest one, but the one higher than that. And if red had been played and knowledge would need to be played next, since there isn't a one higher than the top, in that case only, knowledge then goes to this space way down here that's dedicated to knowledge in this event and becomes the lowest suit.
Yeah, and that is one really, really interesting way that you're going to kind of try to win all the tricks or try to not win all the tricks is knowing and learning, because you're not going to get it on your first game.
No.
Learning how to really manipulate this in such a way that, like, I might play a blue, win it, just to make blue the most powerful suit, knowing that David has a hand of blue. Now I've won one blue. I know he's probably going to have to win all the other blues because I don't have any more. So I've kind of tricked him now into winning all the blues.
If you're Faust,
if you're Faust, right. Now, if you're Mephisto, it's the other way. You want to maybe make blue the highest. If you've got a handful of blue, you know you're going to win all the blue. That feels really good. And you're going to flip one of those tokens over. And like we said, as soon as you flip two, you're going to win. But manipulating this track of Trump is not maybe the most interesting way that you're going to trick your opponent into winning.
There is no maybe about it. The trickiest thing about this game, and probably the most interesting, this is the big hook of the game, are these coins. Each player is going to have these coins. These are really nice metal coins, by the way. They're two-sided. One side represents Faust, the other Mephisto. On your turn, when it's your turn to play a card, whether you're leading or not, if you want to play a card, you can always, if you have a coin left, spend that coin and ask the other player to play a card on your behalf. Not only that, but you can dictate the suit that you want them to play, and you can dictate whether it's their highest or their lowest of that suit. Now, there are some rules involved there. If I say play your highest green, and he doesn't have green, he can throw off, but he still has to follow that highest lowest request of mine. The other interesting thing is if I played a blue, and for some reason I'm thinking, oh, I played blue, I'm going to ask him for his lowest green or something, just so I can get rid of green out of his hand or other strategies. But he still has a blue left. He still has to follow suit. So he's like, well, I don't have green. I have blue, so I'm going to follow suit. But again, even in that case, he still has to follow the highest and lowest request. So it gives you these 2 times per round a tool to do that. And in fact, you can even, I could do that when I lead. I could, like, before I lead, I could say, play your lowest this. Then Ryan is going to play another card that represents basically
my normal play.
His normal play. Or he could even then put it back on me and say, play one on my behalf. And then he's really in control there as long as he has a good sense of what maybe I have left in my hand.
Well, and that's the hard part. This is the part that hurts. Like, it literally hurts my brain is understanding this, because you'll be in these situations where I'm looking at my hand and I'm like thinking, okay, well, I'm Faust. And if I win this trick, I will have won all of the green tricks. And that means Mephisto gets to flip green. How do I get out of winning this? Because this green might be the highest one. As soon as I play green, that's the point when I tell David, okay, I don't want to play this green because I don't want to win this trick. So I'm going to make you play yellow, which is the lowest one. Or I'm going to make you play red or whatever. And then I can follow suit with red and not have to, whatever. It hurts my brain even trying to describe it, because it's really, really difficult to explain how this impacts gameplay. And I find myself even getting a little tripped up, combining that with the fact that when David plays a card, it might change the order of Trump.
Yeah.
So you have to really think about, okay, am I trying to win this trick or am I trying to lose this trick? And I will say, it's a 2-player game. It moves pretty quick. This is the part of the game where you're going to have the most AP. Because if you really, really, really do not want to win the trick, you're going to be looking for an out, studying every card, thinking, okay, well, if I do this, then David might do that. Or if I do this, and this is the biggest problem, if I know, like, if I play green 3, David has to follow suit. He's going to play his high green. But if he's got coins left,
I'm not a great fool, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of you.
Yeah.
Your normal brain process is like, I play 3, I lead, he's playing a green, he's going to take that trick, and then he goes,
or
no.
I could say, play your lowest green on my behalf, and he plays his and then he took the trick when he didn't want to take the trick. So what this does is what I think a lot of these newer age trick-taking games do. They inject into the formula of trick-taking just a few more things that you have to keep in mind.
Oh, more than a few.
There's tools that it gives you to kind of manipulate things and navigate what would typically be a fairly straightforward trick-taking game. This one, in a weird way, even compared to Jekyll versus Hyde and the other ones, this one in a weird way seems more elegant and simple. There's like Jekyll and Hyde had like cards that had powers on them. And
Yeah,
stuff like that.
so did Dracula versus Van
This
Helsing.
one is very straightforward in terms of the deck, other than the fact that there's different numbers of cards of the different suits, which is kind of cool. But from a brain melting standpoint, this one, you're going to be, when it's your turn to lead, and even sometimes when you're not leading, just when it's your turn, especially like late in the hand when you're down to it and you're like, wait a minute. Because you're not even just like what Ryan said, you're not just even thinking about this very trick. I might have the option to go, okay, well, I could do this and do this, but then what does that leave me with so that I can still get rid of my 2 other green that I have in my hand without losing?
Well, and there's going to be a lot of moments where you think you know exactly how it's going to play out, but it's not a perfect information game.
Yes.
Every round there's 2 cards that are missing. Now, those 2 cards don't count. Like, if you get to the end and I have all the greens except for those 2, I can't say, oh, I didn't take them all. No,
these just don't matter.
They don't matter. But what it does mean is, like, if I'm counting on, like, if I don't have the 7 green in my hand, and I'm counting on the fact that David has the 7 green, I tell David, hey, play your highest for me, expecting the 7 green. 7 green might be out of the game, and he plays like a 4 or something, and then my whole plan is just ruined at that moment.
Those moments are absolutely the moments where you have to give. Okay, well, green's lost. I've got to pivot and focus on this, and that's another thing I want to say. I think for both sides, but I think probably for both sides, to go into a round and think, okay, I'm going to try to get all the tricks for all the suits. If you're Mephisto,
It's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. What you're better off doing is looking at your hand and saying, okay, what suits can I use that I'm not going to win? I'm not going to win for my side, if you will, but I can utilize them to manipulate the game such that I can definitely win these other ones. But again, that's where it comes back to this hierarchy too, because you might have a big suit and you're like, well, that one's lost because we've already got it, but I could use that suit now to help manipulate the game. Have a bunch of yellow, we'll have it up here. It'll let me win just a bunch of other tricks. And again, remember though, even that is fleeting unless you're talking about knowledge, because once all of the cards get filled up, all of those go away again. So maybe for a trick, you can have that. Maybe a little bit more if you're like avoiding one suit getting played. But it is a really, really interesting game. This is a great trick-taking game for travel. The footprint is tiny.
It's very tiny.
But yeah, you're going to melt your brain. If you're a trick-taking player out there and you're thinking like, oh, I've played a lot of trick-taking games, we'll see how much this brain... Even when we played, and I played a couple times with my wife, but when I played with Ryan, I got the sense that after the first round, the first few hands, I think you thought you had a handle on it, and then you're like, oh,
it's very easy to forget.
You make a mistake, and you're like, oh, okay, I totally.
Well, because you're thinking like you're thinking about the fact that like I'm making you play a card for me, and I'm thinking like for sure like. You're playing for me, but then you're also playing for you. So like if I make a mistake, I call for the wrong suit. Like I think I'm gonna trap you, and I'm gonna say play your lowest green for me, and then you're gonna play your highest green for you. Oh, but you don't have any other green,
so I just dump off.
So you just made green high because I let it, and now you're gonna play your blue, and I still end up taking the trick, even though I thought for sure. Like getting out of those traps is very, very hard, and I think without it, the game maybe is very simple and average.
Sure.
But when you add the fact that you can never really be comfortable playing any card, because until your opponent's out of coins, then you're like, oh, now I feel like I can kind of play the way I want to play. But it's like a threat. Having those cards, like seeing those coins sitting there is like, gives me anxiety.
Oh yeah, if someone spends their coins, and this is not a trick-taking game, but it reminds me of Mind Bug in a way.
Yeah.
These are a lot like Mind Bug cards. There's a game called Mind Bug, if you're not familiar, that each player has 2 cards, and at any time, if someone plays a card, if I remember correctly, you can play the Mind Bug, and effectively you act as though you played that card, and then they play again. That's a little mind-bendy. This, it's even more so, because like Ryan said, a lot of times I'll say, oh, play your highest for me, and then I'll think that I get to play again, but I don't. He gets to play his card too. So he's effectively playing the 2 cards into the trick. And what's interesting is you'll get to the point where someone might have 2 cards and someone has 4 cards. And when that gets to the point, it just means that at the end of the round, they're going to have to use their coins to play the rest of the hand from one player's hand, which is really quite interesting because if they have a good sense of what cards are still out, and by the way, you do have a good sense because the tricks that you collect, you put them organized by suit face up so everyone can see what's out there, which by the way, if that weren't out there,
it would be impossible.
It would be, it would melt my head.
It's hard enough with 2 cards face down, trying to figure out what those 2 cards are. And I won a game that maybe I shouldn't have because some of the cards were in there and you were.
There was one I was just banking that maybe, because we were down to just a couple of hands in our, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna hope that Ryan has that card. It was in here. Or the other way around. And it is an interesting game that really melts your brain. And I will say, if you're afraid of that, because I think some people could feel that, and when you first experience that, you're going to go, I don't.
It can be aggravating.
This is making me feel dumb. I'm aggravated. I don't want to play this because I feel dumb. The game plays so quickly that I think you could play, like Alicia and I played 3 times in a row right away. And we kept the same sides until the last game we played because I did want to experience both sides. I would say this. I would not advise anyone to sit down and play this once and then switch sides immediately.
Yeah, get to know your role.
I would say play this a few times as Mephisto and as one player as Faust, and then switch. Because when you switch back and forth, it really hurts because guaranteed there were times where I played a card and I took a trick and I'm like, oh, I'm not Faust.
Yeah, I don't want.
I thought I was. It's almost like muscle memory. You get into this thing where you're like, this is how we play this game, but the roles are completely different in that respect.
All right. Well, the last thing I want to say about this particular game is that if you're a fan of the versus games, and I know like when Dracula versus, where was the first one?
Jekyll
versus Hyde was the first one. When that came out, we fell in love with it. And each one, even the cooperative one versus Scotland Yard and Dracula versus Helsing, they've all done something different and unique. So if you're following along with the line, and you might think, oh, well, do I need another one? Again, this is one that introduces something completely different. I find myself wondering how far this is going to go. How many of these unique 2-player trick takers can they come up with? Because they keep innovating on the formula in a really interesting way, and they make really good companion games for each other.
I would agree. Take this with a grain of salt. There's probably a little recency bias at play here, but I think this is my favorite of them. It's interesting because it weaves in the suits as part of the trick of what you're trying to do. Jekyll versus Hyde was just the tricks themselves, right, in an abstract nature. This one, you're thinking about each suit as it relates to your win conditions, which I think is a new thing. I didn't play Dracula versus Van Helsing, but I'm not sure.
No, Dracula versus Helsing has like a whole city board, and you're like controlling districts to try to either like kill Dracula or Dracula's trying to convert all the allies of Van Helsing. So very different from this, very different from the other. And then the cooperative one where you're playing Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard is like a whole narrative campaign almost.
Yeah, that one gave you new things to do, I think, each time. But yeah, I'll be interested to see too if they are able to keep putting these out.
I hope so.
I like this theme. I like the way this one plays quite a bit.
Yeah, perfect for Halloween too.
Yes, it is perfect for Halloween. If you have any questions about it, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.